Hey, BassGeek here, and today we're going to talk about throwing hair jigs for winter bass. So let's talk about hair jigs, guys, and I'll be honest with you, I keep this extremely simple. This is a wintertime technique. These hair jigs can produce some massive bags if you get in the right areas. Now, there's really only two ways I fish them. There's several sizes that I fish, but I'm going to give you a couple of different ones for each technique that I fish these in, and that'll really get you started. Number one, let's talk about the hair jig itself. The hair jig, guys, generally is going to be something like this. Now, as far as colors go, I mean, you're going to see me use really just 3 to 5 different colors. This is kind of a camo color, so it's kind of that green and brown mix. This is that green craw. You'll see me throw a white one, and right now what I don't have is any of my black ones. So the black ones made famous, you know, the marabou hair jigs, but this is exactly the same. So those tend to be the colors that I throw. Now there is one more color, and that is actually a pink, a straight up bubble gum. You know, us anglers, we don't use pink, we use bubble gum. What a lot of these are really made for, a lot of these are flies, and they're made for a floating fly. But how I use them is I actually tight line them. So if you don't know anything about tight lining, go back and watch my top 5 winter baits videos. I'll give you a real quick, real easy rundown of tight lining. The others, once we get up into the other weights, like, you know, this one, which is a 1/2 ounce, I've got 3/8, I've got 1/8 ounce. These, I'm going to fish them a little more like I would a regular jig. So I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm just going to lift and drag, letting that hair pulsate and bringing those fish in. Now, as far as trailers go, I generally do not use a trailer on them unless I'm throwing, again, this jig. Now this jig is a camo color, and it's by Dale Hollow Tackle. This particular jig, the head is slightly different. It does have a little bit of roll. It is actually meant to be drug on the bottom. A lot of times when I'm throwing that bait, depending on the water clarity, if I'm throwing this camo, so a brown or a green or a brown and green, I'm going to throw this on there. This is the Bass Munitions Mach 1 craw. The others are in my boat, and I just didn't want to go get them. This is a black and blue, but it's a Mach 1 craw. Good, you know, small presentation that I will put, and I won't pinch any of this off. I'll put it all on there exactly the way it is. Get those claws that kick just a little bit, and they stand up. The good thing about Bass Munitions is their plastics float, so those claws are going to stand up for us. About the Dale Hollow jigs is I'm going to drag most of them on the bottom and fish them with a small trailer. Now that being said, once we get down into some of their others, these, I'm probably going to tight line them, or I'm slowly going to fish them on the bottom so that they're touching bottom, but they're swimming along that bottom, kind of knocking into things. Very, very slow drag. Sometimes I will put a grub on the end of them when I'm doing that. Now, my buddy from Z-Do's, you can see here, these are your really floating flies or jigs. And guys, I'll use these, generally I'm on the lighter side. So about a 1/8 when I'm tight lining, a 1/8 is about as high as I will go. So a 1/8 ounce, a 3/16, a 1/16, I've even got some smaller stuff, but sometimes I'll even go down to some teeny tiny little feather hair jig combo when I'm tight lining. So I can get it out there and I can just let that bait pendulum back to me. I never put, if I'm moving the bait most of the time, there is never a trailer if I'm constantly moving. Much like I said with the Dale Hollows, if I'm swimming them on the bottom, and the thing I love about the Dale Hollows is they do have weed guards. So you're not going to get hung up as much. But if I'm swimming them on the bottom, generally I'm never putting a trailer on. The only time that I'm putting that trailer on is, like I said, when I am throwing this little contraption right here, and I'm fishing it more like you're going to fish a football head jig. So I'm moving it, stopping, I'm moving it, stopping. I'm fishing it with the rod, not the reel. 90% of the time though, when I throw these hair jigs, these are from Z-Doos, and of course guys, I'll put links in the bottom. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. My buddy Z-Doos, he makes them. He's a local guy, but I'm not sponsored by him. And Dale Hollow Tackle probably doesn't know I even exist. So my buddy Joey was the guy that actually turned me on to them. My buddy from South Carolina, he actually turned me on to those. So now let me show you the two rods that I'll fish them on. So first let's talk about the lighter jigs. So anything from an 1/8 down, generally I'm going to fish on a spinning combo. So from the 3/8, sometimes even the 1/8, but from the 3/8 up, that 3/8, that 1/2 ounce, I'm throwing on a bait caster. Now, you can throw it on a spinning rod, and like I always say, in the wintertime, I'm going to lower my line size, which means sometimes I may throw it on a heavier spinning rod. I'll get to that part in a minute. Let's talk about the 1/8 and lower. So, guys, you know, this is my favorite spinning reel that I own. And I own 2 or 3 of these now, and I love them. This is the Mach Crush. It's a high-speed reel. Now, the one thing I will say about tight lining, you have to remind yourself to slow down. So, this is a 6. A lot of your spinning reels will come in a 5-speed. If you're moving the bait too fast, either slow down or use a slower reel to help you slow down without having to think about it. And sometimes I have to do that. This is a medium light. This is a Lew's custom speed stick. This is a medium light, but it has an extra fast tip. This is the same exact rod that I use to Damiki rig and to drop shot with. So it's got a medium light backbone, but the tip really reacts fast. It's got a nice extra fast tip. So once they come up and get it, it's going to set them. I'm going to be able to lean into them. Going to have a nice parabolic bend, and I'm going to keep those fish hooked up on those very, very small single hooks. It's also going to allow me to cast those very small baits on it. So those very, very small baits, I'm going to be able to cast those out there on this and get some good distance and let that pendulum back. Now line, 90% of the time, I'm not going over 8-pound test. If the water is super clear, you'll see me go as low as 4. 6 is kind of that happy medium. I like to use 6 most of the time. I just think when you're tight lining, the lighter the line, and I know there's some guys out there, man, they'll go down to 3-pound test, 2 and 3-pound test. I don't have those kind of cojones to do that. So, you know, 6-pound test, good happy medium for me. You know, if a guy is just with me in the boat and he's just racking me and he's got, you know, 4-pound test, I'll drop down. But you need a reel with good drag if you're fishing line that small. Now, let's jump up. And you'll see this is a bait or a setup that I throw with my regular jigs. So this is just kind of my casting jig setup. As you'll see here, I've got a, let me get this off here. I've got a, you can see it's got BassGeek on there, 7.3. This is one of, Always protect them. You know, always check at the bottom. Everything that's on here will be in the description below. Make sure you check out TRC. Best rod covers in the business, hands down, far and away. Haven't broke a rod, and I carry a lot of rods with me, but I have not broke a rod getting it in or out or traveling or an eye since I've started using them. Now, let's talk about those 3/8 and those 1/2 ounces. This is what I'm going to use. This is a Killer Bass Baits Trident. It is a 7'3" medium heavy, and it's got a fast action tip. Now, the Tridents tend to be a little bit on the softer side of the medium heavy fast action, and that's why I like them. I can throw that out there, that 3/8. It's going to cast it a mile, and you know, same with the 1/2 ounce, especially if we put that trailer on, and we're going to be able to drag it back. Now, during the winter time, if I'm not throwing around a ton of cover, which most of these I am not throwing around a ton of cover, I'm working outside edges if I'm tight lining them. They do tend to like rock a lot, so I'm not going to throw them around real heavy rock. If I am throwing them around real heavy rock, I'm going to go to that swimming action with them, and I'll even do that with these. The most I will fish on this 14-pound test. I don't like to go that high, so I'll spool it up with 10 or 12-pound test. 12 tends to be my go-to, but in the wintertime, again, you want to downsize that line as much as you possibly can. If you get, if you have a good medium to a medium heavy spinning reel or spinning rod, a 7-foot, generally I like those 7 foot. So if you have a medium to a medium heavy that has a good fast or extra fast action, you can go with this. And I'd even recommend, you know, on those bigger jigs, you know, those 3/8 or whatever, if you're going to swim them, maybe doing that and going down to that 8-pound test line. Listen, in the wintertime, especially when I'm fishing for smallmouth, and I fish for smallmouth a lot in the wintertime, this is the setups that I'm going to go to. And I'm going to go to the lightest line I can get away with, which means a lot of times going to some line sizes that are a little bit scary with the size baits that I'm using. So it really is that simple, guys. You know, as far as the retrieves, like I said, I'm going to tight line, I'm going to cast it out, I'm going to let it pendulum back. If I'm working a bluff, I'm going to get in tight with that bluff, and I'm going to 45 to parallel it, one of the two. I'm just going to make sure I'm out there as deep as I can be on the side of that bluff and bringing it back to the boat. It will call fish up from deeper. Everything will be in the description below, guys. Get out there and try a hair jig in the wintertime. It will surprise you the amount of fish you're going to put in, especially on those toughest of tough days. I've given you a couple different ways to fish it. If you've got any questions, as always, guys, questions and comments in the comment section below. You guys know I love to talk fishing with you. So make sure you put those questions down there in that comment section. I will answer everything that you can possibly imagine. And this works anywhere, not just highlands, lakes, and not just for smallmouth. You can fish these hair jigs during the wintertime when other jigs aren't going to pay off. I have caught myself over the past few years fishing these hair jigs more than I fish regular jigs during the wintertime, just to be honest. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you guys ring that bell. Questions, comments in the comment section. I already said that. And you guys rock.